Wow. I can't believe that all of this exists on a Greek island. Did you know that the largest inhabited medieval city in Europe is actually on a Greek island? Let's go to Rhodes. Stepping into the old town of Rhodes feels like time traveling to the Middle Ages.
I spent a summer studying here years ago.
And for me, this was my first stroll through this medieval maze. Naturally, we need a guide who knows their history. So who better than our new friend Spyros, a highly acclaimed scholar who we suspect might secretly be a time traveler himself.
Now we are going to go through a time gate, literally. This is the gate of the Grand Master d'Arbois, one of the most famous of all Grand Masters who were here. And as we go through this gate, we will enter a world that used to exist, but it's still there. You can appreciate what the knights did, reinforcing the entrance. And we have two bastions, these round towers, which protect it. And here you can see the lower part of the old fortification. This is definitely the Hellenistic remains. It's a very long and nice walk for us today.
Would this have been a drawbridge?
Yes, yes, yes. This is us entering the past.
Nice.
One way to last a siege was obviously to have very good fortification. The other thing was to make sure that there was enough provisions to help one last. You need food and water. If you run out of these two, probably you would have to surrender, just like the knights did in 1522. So water comes from wells like this. And the knights made sure that during seasons of prosperity, they always stored grain mainly and other provisions at the basement of the palace. We just went through the gate and we saw the outer fortification, which was in the 16th century. And now this part that we see here is of the 14th century, and that one down there again is from the early 14th century. All these stones come from quarries, which sometimes was places like Alithea, and we can still see that they were brought from places that were very close to the sea, because you can still see a little seashell here, tells us where this came from.
Wow. Right? There's this one too.
Yeah, this is even better.
That's so crazy cool.
The presence of the liquid element and the Poseidon is hidden always here.
How old is this castle?
It's not as old as it seems. It's like Rhodes, it hides very well its age. You won't believe that this city is 2,500 years old. The castle had been destroyed by a very big explosion in the gunpowder room, and the castle was knee-high. That was all. And then the Italians spent a lot of money to rebuild it, and they claim that they based the style of the castle on blueprints that they found. We don't know, we haven't seen these plans. And my guess is that they based it on a romantic view of ancient castles like Knossos. There's an inner yard and protection and very Daedalic, very complex corridors all around it. So this is a 20th century construction.
Okay.
It was originally built to be given to the Emperor Vittorio Emanuele, but Mussolini lost the war before he or the emperor ever managed to set foot in it.
Oh, wow.
As expats who have moved to and are exploring Greece, Rhodes struck me as more cosmopolitan than any other place we visited. While talking with Spyros, we found out that this worldly vibe is not only modern, it's been in the city's DNA for centuries.
We define otherness and we forget to the person who sits opposite us, we are the opposite, we are the foreigner. So we cultivate this sort of empathy. This is the best way to teach respect of otherness. But the people of Rhodes, even since antiquity, did not need to be taught because they experienced it. It was a very cosmopolitan place, most probably because of its geographical position, as it stood between three different worlds: Greece, Northern Africa and the East. It was most importantly a port of ideas.
Back in the Middle Ages, Rhodes had many cultures of knights, with noblemen from France, Spain, Italy, England, and Germany, all living within the city walls. They may have spoken different languages, but their mission was the same, to fortify and protect this incredible city.
In 1522, the Knights of the Order of St. John, the youngest one must have been at least 75 years old. So I don't know what you have in mind, Katina, but this was not the night of, I don't know, Sir Lancelot from the movies fighting.
Was it like take the helmet off and blonde hair comes flying out?
Blonde and much more white and gray, but they were the leaders. And all this area that surrounds us was called the Kolakion, and it was the administrative center. The Archaeological Museum of Rhodes originally was the hospital of the hospitaliers, the Knights of the Order of Doctors. This is what they were.
Standing in front of the palace, we found ourselves at a point where the revolving doors of history had intertwined so finely to perfectly illustrate what makes Rhodes one of the most unique places in the world.
Now, this is one of my most favorite streets, I would say, in Europe. I don't think that many streets convey this feeling that I get when I walk on this very old street. It's 200 meters all in all, but I think that I walk through history here. Right behind us, Katina, you see the palace of the Grandmasters. As we said, this was built by the Italians. The most impressive thing is that this is the beginning of an amazing route in time. You can see at the bottom of it the original 14th century stones, and then the Italians built on it. So we have a construction which was based on a probably classical and definitely Hellenistical period building. So you start from the 5th, 4th century BC, and then you have the Byzantine end here, and then you have a 14th century AD construction which is completed with the 20th century Italian construction. So you have 4 different civilizations, and we haven't even started yet.
Wow.
So we leave from the 5th century AD and we walk right ahead, and the building that we see here is a school. It is a 19th century construction by the Neo-Turks. The Muslim school is built on the remains of a church, St. John's Church. It was destroyed by the big explosion of 1872, which destroyed the palace. But most probably, here was also the Temple of Helios, the Temple of the Sun in the Hellenistic period. Right here, we found this beautiful head of Helios, which is now kept at the Museum of Rhodes, and a plaque with 64 at least priests who served as priests at the Temple of Helios during the time when the Colossus was built.
Oh, wow.
So here we have a Hellenistic temple and a medieval temple and the Muslim school right here. Until 1987, 88, this school was still used. My father used to teach here. We don't have to walk very far, and then we see the Byzantine watchtower. And when the Ottomans came here, they brought the most advanced clock of that period. So we have a Byzantine touch with a Muslim addition up there. Right next to it, we still see parts of Byzantine fortification. Right next to the Byzantine watchtower, we have the Muslim mosque. We will end up right there. This was called Imaret. Imaret is a soup kitchen.
Okay.
This was for the poor. If we went in here, you see a tiny little church, which is from the 15th century AD, St. John. So in 200 meters, we just walked 2,000 years of history. And we saw all the civilizations that once were here in Rhodes, side by side. I always feel that it is as if they hold hands. as if they danced together. And we saw them moving from this powerful plural of civilizations to an even more impressive singular of civilization, the civilization of Rhodes, which is the civilization of respect of otherness, of inclusion, and of coexistence. And this is what I love about this street.
In a small twist of fate, we discovered that Spyros once taught at the same school where Katina studied abroad, just a classroom away.
I'm already kicking myself for missing out on his classes back then. We were treated to the best history lesson ever as he led us outside the city walls for a more fascinating insight.
This is a very nice view of the moat here. When we think of a moat, we imagine water around a castle. It does not work like this. The whole point was to have a big enough distance between the defender and the attacker.
When we're talking about the layers of the wall and when they added on, like, when was this originally built?
The walls were protecting the city during the Hellenistic period, which was around the 3rd century BC.
Oh, wow.
And then we have the Byzantine fortification, which continued the walls that existed there. When the Knights came in 1309, they had to reinforce the fortification because the relationship with the Ottomans had started becoming very strenuous. So how do we know when and by whom the walls were being refortified? There are signatures hidden in the walls. You can see a coat of arms. We can tell who was the Grand Master at that time. You see all the pointy decoration, I will call it, on the fortification. And I call it decoration because this is what it was. It was a romantic memory of the older days, because in 1522, they were absolutely useless. People did not fight with arrows and catapults anymore. We want to make the lower part even thicker so that it absorbs the impact of the cannonballs. So everything changes, but the romantic reminiscence of the old days is still there.
Wow, I love that. They're like, we just love this decor.
Decor, yes.
Our time-traveling guide, Spyros, took us on a tour of the moat, explaining why this was the best fortification ever built in the Mediterranean.
In 1480, the Muslims came with 100,000 men and the Knights were 6,000. They managed to last for one whole year. The city did not fall, so this is when they started building the bastions and the embankments. The second siege was, of course, in 1522. This time the Muslims came with twice as many. Our sources talk about 200,000 soldiers. All that was left behind the walls was 5,600 men able to fight. They did manage to last, but the siege was successful because they cut out the provisions. And the Knights left Rhodes after 213 years. They gave up the military aspect of their order and they became again hospitaliers. So it's as if they made a circle. They started as doctors and at the end they became again what they were at first. And even as we speak, the order exists, the Order of St. John, and of course they do many good things about public health and they offer their help as they used to. There are many places in Greece that preserve this air of the past. But what I think makes Rhodes unique is the scale of all this and how it turned into a contemporary living organism. It is not easy to say that this is Italian, this is Muslim, this is Byzantine, this is Hellenistic, because they are all so close together and you just slide from one into another. And it was always such a cosmopolitan place because different cultures shared the same place. So what makes it unique is this almost magical ability to turn otherness into us.
Yeah.
So you can see that in the architecture and even in the attitude and the mentality of the people.
After parting ways with Spyros, we wandered the streets of Rhodes on our own, soaking in the vibes of acceptance and a beautiful cultural melting pot that set the city apart from anywhere else in Greece.
Later, we reconnected with Spyros for a tour of his personal favorite spots, hidden gems that might not be on the tourist map but are close to his heart.
It's always nice to feel that there is a little secret hidden somewhere. We are going to see the Church of St. Nicholas, which is in a cave. The view from here is amazing. There's always a strange warm light that makes it a very nice warm feeling of being welcomed here. All these places here were actually Nymphea, the place of the worship of the nymphs, and then later people came and they put a little icon here, so again it remained a place of worship, but it carries within it all the vibes of faith, a timeless sensation of belief.
From the cave, we hiked up the hill to a view that was nothing short of magical.
Every different age and every different culture, we can see it here. We just came from the Cave of the Nymphs, which is 2,500 years old, and we're looking at the modern city. Here and there, they spring like flowers, the reminiscence from the history of the island. The building at the tip of the island there is the aquarium built by the Italians, and the big brown building there, which is now the Casino of Rhodes, which was the first big Cosmopolitan hotel built by the Italians also. Whoa. And we can also see the Church of Annunciation down there. And if we go behind the trees, we can still see the Palace of the Grand Masters. And if we turn our gaze there, we will end with the Temple of Apollo. So everything is like a big hug. We hug history and we're part of it. So many ways to look at the past, but the most important thing is that you walk in exactly the same footsteps that those people walked. We have exactly the same roads. We see the same things that they saw 2,000 years ago or 500 years ago.
That's one of my favorite things about Greece. You can never escape the history. No matter where you are, you stumble upon something. In Rhodes, you see it in a much different way, I think, than anywhere else I've ever been.
I think it's the best way to feel that history, it's not something that belongs to the past. We are part of history. Everything is an evolving straight line, and we just follow it and we become part of it.
Thank you for sharing this spot.
It's one of the favorite spots. So we can say goodbye to the sun at the same time when we say our greetings to the moon. It's a nice sense of balance, isn't it?
Did you plan this?
Something is about to end and something is about to begin, and this is a circle of promise.
As we close this chapter on Rhodes' rich history, we're opening another one. Spyros introduced us to Bluetopia, where we'll dive into how they're making seafood sustainable for the future on what turned out to be the best boat tour we've ever taken.
So click here to sail into the next port of our Rhodes adventure.